Hello everyone, welcome back to the learning. Let us start our video. We are in the chapter nutrition in the unit life processes. Last class I have given introduction about life and the processes and nutrition, nutrients, digestion, modes of nutrition, autotrophic mode of nutrition, all that we have learnt, and photosynthesis, food making process in plants, how food making process takes place in plants, and site of photosynthesis, where photosynthesis takes place, and the reaction involved in photosynthesis, all that we have learnt in the last class. And the cross section of leaf and the stomata we have learnt in the last video. Now let us start the heterotrophic. In that parasitic we have finished, saprophytic, symbiotic and holozoic. With all these 5 steps we have understood in ingestion, digestion, absorption, assimilation and egestion. Let us start how nutrition takes place in amoeba. Amoeba also follows holozoic type of heterotrophic nutrition. Let us take a brief look on it. See, this is amoeba which doesn't have any proper structure. You people know that, right? It will engulf, it will capture its food by its foot, false foot. We call that as a pseudopodia. It is a food vacuole, food particle. This process is called ingestion. By the diagrammatically we are understanding the holozoic type of nutrition. First is ingestion. It is capturing, it is holding the food, and a vacuole has been created. A food vacuole has been created. After that it will be engulfed into the body, into the cytoplasm. This is called the digestion, means the breakdown also takes place in the cytoplasm by the chemical and enzymes which are released by the amoeba, right? That is nothing but the breakdown, digestion. Then absorption, it will be absorbed by the cell particles in the sense cell organelles, all the cell organelles will absorb the nutrients. Then assimilation, it will be distributed and utilized by all the organelles for their proper functioning. Then egestion takes place, like the undigested food will be thrown out from the organism's body, like amoeba's body. That process we call it as an egestion. By this we can understand that a small animal called the amoeba will also undergo heterotrophic type of nutrition, that will be holozoic type of heterotrophic nutrition. Now let us understand nutrition in the human beings. See, nutrition in human beings starts at the mouth itself, right? It starts at the mouth and ends with the anus, right? Let us understand each part, what happens in each part, what happens in the mouth, what happens in the next part, and what happens in the stomach briefly in our video. Let us move on to the buccal cavity. See, the complete mouth, oral cavity and nasal cavity with all the tongue, pharynx, lips, jaw and all, we call it as a buccal cavity. In the buccal cavity, first we will talk about, let us understand the mouth has teeth and tongue. The salivary glands are also present in the mouth. See here, the buccal cavity is having teeth, the tongue will be here, and the salivary glands. Now, when it comes to the part of tongue, let us understand the function of tongue. Tongue helps in the mixing of food with the saliva which is secreted by the salivary glands. Okay. Then the function of salivary glands. Let us understand what are all the salivary glands present in our buccal cavity. There are the parotid salivary gland, sublingual salivary gland, and submandibular salivary gland. These are all the three glands. They are present in pairs. Nothing but 6 salivary glands are present in the buccal cavity. One is present, the parotid salivary gland is present just below the ear, right? Both sides. It will become 2 parotid glands. The next is submandibular. It is present just near the lower jaw, right? Submandibular, 2, left and right. Then sublingual, that salivary gland is present below the tongue, right? Then the salivary glands will secrete saliva. The liquid part which is present in our buccal cavity, in our mouth, we call that as a saliva. It contains water and an enzyme, we call it as a salivary amylase or taline, right? Let us understand what is the function of salivary amylase. This salivary amylase helps in the breakdown of starch into glucose, right? First, let us understand ingestion. When we keep the food particle in our buccal cavity, in our mouth, our teeth start breaking that food particle. The food will be in a complex form that will be broken down into simple form, right? This is called the mechanical digestion. In the last class I have told you about the mechanical digestion. Here we are deeply understanding what is mechanical digestion. The breakdown of food particle with the help of the teeth, we call that as a mechanical digestion, right? And at the same time, these 3 salivary glands, these 3 paired salivary glands will secrete the saliva. How long we can chew the food in our buccal cavity? Approximately by 10 seconds, right? 10 seconds or 5 seconds maximum we will swallow it. Here the salivary amylase is going to act on the starch particle of our food. Only starch breakdown takes place in the mouth, right? And starch will be converted to glucose. Only 10% of the starch, whatever the food we will consume, in that only 10% of the starch will be converted to glucose in the buccal cavity itself. If we start chewing the food for longer time, for about 15 minutes or 20 minutes continuously same food, then the complete starch will be converted to glucose in the buccal cavity itself. But we won't do that. We just chew for some time and we will swallow it, right? And the next is the tongue. Tongue helps in the mixing of the salivary amylase, saliva with the food which is present in our buccal cavity, right? That mixed food, we call that as a bolus, will be swallowed. See here how the starch will be broken down into glucose by the action of the salivary amylase, right? Now let us move on to the type of teeth, right? The permanent teeth and the temporary teeth. Let us understand that point. Now let us talk about the permanent teeth which the adults are having. They are the incisors. The first 4 are the incisors. The next 2 comes the canines. The next 2 are the premolars, and the next 3 are the molars. The kids will be having temporary teeth. They are all the 2 incisors and 1 canine. They doesn't have the premolars, they have molar teeth. Okay, they help for the breakdown of the food. Let us understand the dental formula of milk teeth. Incisors will be 2. See, the incisors will be 2 and the canine 1. See, the canine is 1. Then the molars will be 2. The molars will be 2. Then upper jaw and lower jaw into 2 sets. See here, 2 2. This side and this side. It will be like incisors, canines, no premolars, only molars. 20 teeth will be considered as the milk teeth. After they fall off, then we will get the permanent teeth. The formula will be 2 1 2 3. 2 incisors, 1 canine, 2 premolars and 3 molar teeth. By this, we can understand what are all the parts of the buccal cavity, what are all the function of the parts which are all present in the buccal cavity. It will be having tongue. We have understand the function of tongue. It helps in the mixing of food, and it also helps in the articulation of speech. Whenever we speak, the tongue will be twisted. Then only we can speak properly and fluently. That is called the articulation of speech. That is also the function of tongue. And teeth in the mechanical digestion, and salivary glands which will secrete the saliva which contains the salivary amylase, which will break down the starch to glucose. These are things happen in the buccal cavity. After that, we will swallow the food. That food we call that as a bolus. That bolus will pass through the pharynx and it will enter into a muscular tube. We also call it as food pipe, and it is also called esophagus. Now let us understand about the esophagus. See, esophagus is a muscular tube. It is about 25 centimeters long. It is about 25 centimeters long, and the main function of esophagus is to transport food entering the mouth through the throat and into the stomach. It is a connection between the buccal cavity and the stomach. And the main function of this esophagus, another main function is it will perform the peristaltic movement, wavy movement, which makes the bolus for the easy passage, right? It propels the bolus down the esophagus by the primary and secondary peristaltic movements. The food will pass on the esophagus and it will enter into the stomach. By this, the bolus will enter into the stomach. Now let us move on to the next part of our digestive system, stomach. It is a bag-like structure. So it's a bag-like structure, it's a pouch-like structure, it is a J-shaped structure, right? See here, the esophagus will be up to here and our stomach starts here, right? Let us understand what happens in the stomach. Stomach is a bag-like organ. Highly muscular walls of the stomach helps in the churning the food. Churning means the mixing the food. The walls of stomach secrete hydrochloric acid. See here, the walls of stomach will secrete the hydrochloric acid. Let us understand the function of hydrochloric acid. This hydrochloric acid kills the germs which may be present in food. Whatever the germs the food contains, that will be killed by the action of HCl. It is a very strong acid. It can kill the bacteria. Then it will create the acidic medium. Basically, the hydrochloric acid is a strong acid. It will create the acidic medium in the stomach. The acidic medium is necessary for gastric enzymes to work, and it also activates pepsinogen. It activates pepsinogen, which is also secreted in the stomach. It will convert pepsinogen into the active pepsin, right? This active pepsin will break the proteins into short peptides. Okay, the pepsin will break the proteins into peptides. That means protein digestion takes place in the stomach, not in the mouth, right? Then the stomach also secretes mucus. Let us understand the function of mucus. The mucus is secreted by the walls of the stomach, which saves the inner lining of the stomach from getting damaged from the hydrochloric acid. As you people know that hydrochloric acid is very strong acid. It can damage any cellular particle or any cell, right? Our stomach is made up of cells and muscles, right? It can damage our muscles in the stomach lining, but our stomach is already having a preparation of mucus which will protect our stomach lining from the action of hydrochloric acid, right? By this we can understand what happens in the stomach. When the bolus comes into the stomach, the HCl, hydrochloric acid, will be secreted, which kills the bacteria, and it will activate the pepsinogen, which is an enzyme which will break the proteins into peptides, and it also secretes the mucus, which protects the stomach lining from the corrosive action of HCl. By this we can understand what happens in the stomach. Then next is the food here enters into the next part of the digestive system. It starts the small intestine. Will start with the duodenum. Okay, what happens in the duodenum? What are all the organs involved in the digestive system? All these, what is the function of enzymes secreted by the liver and pancreas, all that we are going to study in our next class. Thanks for listening to the video. Thanks for liking it. Thanks for sharing it. Thanks for subscribing it. Thank you.